Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your attendance this morning. So this is the second session of this panel with major leaders in the ICT and telecom sector, who will also share with us on how they keep up with the fast technological evolution. Indeed, over the past years, the fast technological evolution of the ICT sector required from leaders more planning and organization anticipation. These evolutions embrace all areas: strategy, technology, management as telco cloud, sustainability, data AI, or know-how management. At this panel, we'll be covering the question of how leaders can manage and anticipate while managing performance and customer needs. So I'll start with the first question and hand over to all the panelists. The ICT and telecom sector has undergone a lot of developments recently. What would you say was the most influencing one?
Governance?
No, the change in the...
Yeah. Look, I think there's an emergence in the ICT sector of a multi-orbit strategy now. The focus was a lot on terrestrial networks. Maybe some of us were in the space world trying to do things with satellite that were a bit divergent. But today with 5G seems to have unified the path towards a convergence so that the networks become multi-orbit or become multi-layer networks. Yesterday we were talking about HAPS. HAPS is introducing a completely new layer that is kind of between space and terrestrial networks that provides characteristics that are quite interesting in terms of technical capabilities that are aligned with economic capability. And it seemed like 5G is what is integrating all of this, is what is making all of this possible with release 17 and more coming up. So I think this is a good driver that is creating scale that we never had before, that allows different applications from different orbits to be possible. And I think the other element is sustainability. Everyone was talking about sustainability yesterday. And we know that space, for example, is sustainable when you're in space, but to get to space, you use a lot of fuel. Terrestrial networks, especially when you start going into rural and remote areas, use up a lot of diesel, and not only is the cost high, the cost to the planet is incredibly high. And that's, again, something that we're trying to solve with HAPS, with aircraft that are completely solar powered. They bring a new wave of sustainability that we have not seen before.
Okay. Bassam?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the major change we have encountered recently and the impact.
I mean, there's been a lot of major changes when it comes to ICT. First of all, from a business perspective as an organization, a lot of companies usually go straight for core business, try to sell their core businesses, mobile, fixed, these kind of services. But now these organizations need to think beyond that, because that revenue stream is no longer part of your business. So ICT has become a major player in converting the organization, making them more agile, more fast, more quick to provide services to B2B customers specifically. Taking into the latest apps such as AI, fintech, these are the main drivers that we see pushing pushing ICT into the future. And then of course you have a lot of, within the region here, you have a lot of hyperscalers coming into the country. So these hyperscalers are going to drive massive amounts of traffic into the country. And we believe, based on that, ICT will be a main driver, specifically when it comes to businesses, because that will leapfrog economies, that will leapfrog businesses, that will leapfrog SMEs, because the services they will start providing will be, massive. And then on top of that, you start bringing in things like AI. What can AI do on top of all of this? This is actually, once AI comes in, it'll actually even revamp ICT for you. It'll make ICT become something of the past. What will be the next thing? This is the thing that we need to be looking at as an organization.
So moving from telco to techco.
100%.
What Tony was saying.
Exactly. I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I was planning to say that, but Tony ruined the surprise. Exactly. It's moving from that telco to techco, because that is the only way that telecom companies can actually sustain their business, is that they start looking at ICT as a major driver for what is coming next. And one is coming next is disruptive. It's going to be groundbreaking, and most of the telecom businesses need to be looking at it as what could possibly be the future of telecom business.
And stop looking maybe at telco operators as utility providers. And
Which is unfortunately what we see them now, which is just providing basic services such as mobile, fixed. That is not what telcos need to be, because if they will stick to this, tomorrow morning they're going to close. They need to look at the next step. They need to look at ICT, what could potentially be the future of ICT for them.
sure.
Thank you.
Fadi?
Yeah, I mean, representing mobile connectivity, I would point out a few things. I think finally we are having a technology that will address not only consumers' requirements for entertainment, production, communication, but also the enterprise world. With the 5G low latency, we can now have near-time monitoring and management of different types of thousands of sensors that will make factories and manufacturing plants much more productive than ever. So that's something which is in the doing. Of course, everywhere in the world we have proof of concepts and already some established commercial projects ongoing to show that. The second one, I agree with the fellow panelists here about sustainability, because looking at the data traffic, it has been doubling every second year, basically. And it's been going on for a long time, and we believe it's going to continue to do that. I think in the world, we are over 146 exabytes by now in terms of traffic, some that none of us can really understand. So with 5G, of course, you will see that going even faster, because people can do much more things on their smartphone. And hence, we need to break what we call the energy curve. And that's what we do in terms of ensuring that these 5G-based stations are actually consuming upwards 50% of energy compared to the generation of 5G we just had 4 years ago, for instance. So this is really critical in terms of how we as an industry are contributing to sustainability, not only through the products that are out in the network, but in fact, how the ICT solutions themselves can support different industries to drop carbon emissions. And we count that the ICT solutions by itself can alleviate 15% of the global emissions of the world if handled properly. The third wave that we see coming, still also at early days, is how do we monetize the network? So very important for somebody like Ooredoo and others, mobile network providers, and this is the exposure of the characteristics of the 5G network. I mean, it's a very rich experience that you can take from the 5G network. You have location, you have authentication, quality assurance. And today we are doing this through network slicing, but I think in order to scale it, we need to be able to offer an API world so that developers can easily connect to these APIs and their apps and offer their subscribers a multitude of applications that utilize them. So those are, I would say, the three big movements that are happening.
Thank you, Fadi. Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, just maybe touching on a couple of points that have been made. I think the most recent development, it's not really a recent development, but if you just look at how it's going to impact our sector, is definitely AI. Because it not only drives, the use cases, and we're expecting, 40% annual growth over the next 10 years, $1 trillion economy that didn't exist before. And so it's really forcing us to rethink our networks and our infrastructure investment. It's, of course, going to drive more fiber, which we've already seen proliferate. It's driving lower latency requirements, so requirement that we move processing power towards the edge. And in many of the markets we're working in, we see also that forces restrictions on power and on local resources, and so often will push processing needs out to secondary cities and secondary environments. So I think AI generally with the growth that we anticipate is going to power huge infrastructure investments. We'll buy more Ericsson kit, no doubt, and we'll be seeing that drive a lot of our investments as operators, I think, over the next decade.
And definitely also AI contributing to the sustainability goals that we were talking about.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's interesting that the point about the role that your technology will play in covering rural areas, and I believe, I'm very curious to hear more. It's going to solve a lot of problems we've got in deploying backhaul into different parts of the world for sure. And of course, it's going to increase the demands will be. Oh, we have another panel. The demands will just continue to grow. So, yeah.
Good morning, Mr. John, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for welcoming me, albeit late. I'm very sorry
No worries.
about this.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, sir.
So I will switch to the second question. As telecom leaders and decision makers, new investments are always on top of the plans and goals. So what is the importance of making new investments? Bassam, I'll start with you.
The importance of making new investments, I think, as a telecom organization, as a telecom company, if it's like running a business. If you don't invest in your business, it's at some point in time, somebody's going to come along and outrank you, outbeat you. So this constant investment in latest technology, disruptive technologies, partnering also with businesses, because sometimes telecom companies are not necessarily experts in certain areas. I mean, there's a lot of organizations that are not exactly experts in AI. I can partner with these organizations and then bring up that core development within my own organization. So developing in technologies, 5G, you know, already there are talks about 6G coming out now. So, and I 100% assume that in the next MWC, you're going to start hearing 6G and God knows what else. But also development in-house, in development in your people, development in your apps, development in your business is extremely important to make it disruptive. You, as an organization, will be disruptive towards the market, the telco market. And then that will happen where you move over from telco to techco. And then people will see you as an organization that provides multiple services, not necessarily just the standard core telecom services. And then it's also the relationships that you have with your partners. So your B2B partners also. That's very important to invest in businesses with them and invest in technologies that can support them going onwards. So it's sort of a octopus effect where you spread it out to even beyond your organization, but to the organizations that you work with.
Oman is a very challenging market. So how are you facing this third operator coming to this market and maybe challenging you a bit?
Third operators are my friends. It's good to have them here in the room with us. There you go, see? They're raising their hands. Competition is always healthy. So competition in the market is definitely healthy. It kicks you into shape. It allows you to start thinking about things that you did not necessarily think of. Complacency is not something that I personally like. So having competition in the market is always nice to have. It allows you to think outside the box. It's also good to look into the corner of your competition to see what they're doing, and of course, vice versa, they do the same thing to you. But it allows you to really think about how you can provide services to your customers in niche areas that you did not necessarily think of. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Fadi, from vendor perspective, how do you see those investment?
I mean, technology is really the product of constant innovation, right? So for us, every single year we spend like 17% of our sales into research and development. So that's last year equivalent of almost $4.5 billion US. And this is critical for us, you know, to just keep the position that we have with our customers and to ensure that we always have a constant stream of solution outflow that can live up to the requirements of the day, right? So we see this as absolutely vital for the mobile network development. As I mentioned before, just the amount of data that is coming is one thing, but actually the requirements in terms of having, you know, real-time experience is putting even more requirements on the network, the energy, but also how to build several sources of income for our customers. And that's what we are creating today, something we call the Global Network Platform. So basically a platform that will be open for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of developers around the world, so they can access any company who has a local, a regional, or a global, you know, coverage. And to that end, we have made a major investment, for instance, recently, a year back, in a company called Vonage. It's a CPaaS company in essence. But what we saw in that is that we know 5G, we know understand the networks and how we can expose them. However, we need organic knowledge on how to build a community of developers. And that's what Vonage exactly came with. So that combination is a typical, you know, I would say showcase of an investment, of a big belief of an industry which we will come in the coming years. And let's say that by 2028, we will see the API industry for mobile networks representing around $20 billion. So we're taking major investment today to build that and hopefully collaborate with our partner customers.
Thank you. John, how do you see those investment in the telco ICT sector?
Thank you very much. And once again, apologies for getting here late. The negative effect of innovation, in my view, is to make technology to be a fast-wasting asset. Fast-wasting in the sense that as you deploy technology in your network, then a better technology comes in. That would lead to efficiency, better customer experience, competitive positioning has been mentioned, regulatory compliance, and all that. And that's the beauty, so that it's not just negative, in fact, in terms of making technology a fast-wasting asset, but it gives companies that then have the opportunity to invest in new technologies, the edge to deal with current trends in technological development, better customer experience, better network optimization, and all that. And so I think that it is imperative that companies continually invest in new technologies, and that is because as innovation kicks in, then the technology that you had gets obsolete in one way or the other, making it a really fast-wasting asset, and ensuring that companies have to continuously invest in network optimization, better customer experience, and all that. So investment, continuous investment, is a necessity for any operation. And the location, the geographical location, does not matter, whether in Africa or Europe or wherever. It is necessary that organizations that are on the ground continually invest in new technologies, because the technologies that they had previously becomes obsolete in terms of new innovation. But they also want to have their customers, have a better customer experience, deal with technological challenges, to do with cybersecurity and such like.
So Sam, we're talking about coverage. This is exactly what you are doing, your main investment.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe on the investment side, 2 points, maybe the second a bit more controversial, but the first one is you want to cover populations. That's the goal of every regulator out there, the goal of every mobile operator. But there's always that elusive last 3%, 4%, 5% population that you are not able to cover in an economical way. You can cover them technically. Sometimes it's difficult, but economically it just doesn't make sense, and that's why you don't extend the coverage to those locations. And with HAPS, we can provide a means at that level of altitude. You can provide coverage as a service that is profitable for those communities that don't have population densities that are high. So instead of providing the coverage and subsidizing it as a regulator or as an MNO, or paying the penalties for not, you can do it with the new technology that allows you to do that quite capably, because now you can do it in full 5G as opposed to emergency services from satellite or things like this. But you can do that profitably, and the key is to be profitable. And that takes me to my second point, which I think, I come from a satellite background, and I look at all this stuff happening today with satellite direct-to-device, this euphoria about satellite direct-to-device. In my mind, I've lived through multiple cycles of investment erosion or equity value, value that is completely eroded in the satellite world, more than once. It started in 1998 with the Iridiums of this world, and then it's going to happen again, but Elon Musk is leading the charge with absolutely no regards to what a return on investment should look like. And unfortunately, everybody is jumping, behind them with constellations in the billions of dollars that will end up being bankrupt. And that's erosion of value that is destructive for the whole industry, not just for the satellite industry. So, I would caution that bad investments are bad for the whole industry, not for just the companies that are making them.
So investment, yes, but we have to...
Investment, yes, but cautious investment.
Cautious investment. Ken, you're CEO of a telecom operator, so definitely know how important is the investment.
Yeah, I think John's made a good point about, sort of sweating the assets. And I love the satellite stories going back to Iridium. It's never the first. In some cases, if you don't have that initial demand taken care of or really thought through, then it's not the first investors, it's the second or third investors that make the money on the investment. And I think we're seeing that with any new technology. There's a case of fiber in the UK, for example, where there's been a massive deployment of fiber, yet the take-up levels often are sub 10%, and so people are not hitting their business plans, and they're not filling up the capacity on the pipes that they initially had anticipated. The same thing can take place in data centers if you haven't thought through or you don't have the right relationship with hyperscalers. And the same thing's going to take place in whatever the next satellite constellation is if there's not enough revenues in the pipeline to fill those pipes as quickly as possible right out of the gate. So, I mean, it's just the nature of our business. They're hugely capital-intensive projects. Usually you know within the first 18 to 24 months whether you've hit your business plan or not, and then you readjust and reset expectations. And in the first wave of mobile, and fortunately, we were knocking the numbers out of the park, to use an American phrase. But I think it's getting more and more difficult, and you do need to really think through how rapidly you can commercialize any asset you're going to deploy. Maybe one last comment, because I think the market has changed significantly in the last 18 months. Obviously, interest rates have gone up a lot. Capital investment is being really, really scrutinized. And so any capital that is deployed has to have a very, very clear case, and any capital that's deployed now that's under-commercialized is going to be under some stress. It's going to create investment opportunities for those who've got a bit of dry powder. But going back to your original question, I think all those are factors in where investment goes. Money is going into data centers now because we see that demand existing, because we referenced the AI we talked about before. But I think future investments are, at least in the next, who knows, the next 12 or 18 months until interest rates start to turn, are going to be pretty tight, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So yesterday, Samer put the bar really high, because you said with AALTO, you are covering the 17 SDG of the UN SDG. So, John, what do you think how the ICT sector is contributing to the achievement of the UN Sustainable Goals?
Say that again, sorry?
How the ICT sector is contributing to the achievement of the UN Sustainable Goals, SDG.
The satellite.
No, globally.
How ICT?
I'm not getting the question, sorry.
How the ICT, telco sector.
Okay. I think it's probably not possible to quantify the how, because it's immense. Whether satellite, whether broadcasting, whether technologies to do with imaging and environmental conservation, COP is here. I think the role of ICT generally in terms of the interplay of various technologies is intertwined so much with the SDGs and their realization, so much so that we've seen a number of companies, whether manufacturers, whether operators, put the fulfillment of SDGs in their either manufacturing, rollout, or operational plans. And so it is important that whatever organizations, governments, regulators do, focus on the role of ICTs in terms of fulfillment of SDGs. In Africa, for example, we've had a number of opportunities, or rather, where ICT is pivotal. We've seen the pivotal nature of ICTs in terms of the realization of SDGs, whether it's financial inclusion, the M-Pesa, issues like gender mainstreaming in terms of the socio-political and economic life and all that. And so it is incumbent that we mainstream still a lot of the SDGs in our network planning, network rollout, and their interplay in terms of consumer demands. Talking of Africa, for example, I've mentioned financial inclusion, but there's another aspect that is important in terms of youth involvement in our decision-making processes. Now, the SDGs recognize the role of the youth in terms of the socio-political and economic life, and Africa has the highest number of youthful population worldwide, growing, agile, inquisitive. They'll go down in Lampedusa, but still insist on wanting to cross the Mediterranean, which is amazing. Bad and good, but I think that is the potential of the continent in terms of harnessing the potential of our youth in terms of socioeconomic development and also the realization of SDGs. So I think it's increasingly becoming important that ICTs, whether at the level of regulation, at the level of policy making, at the level of operation, integrate how we can harness the power of youthful population, especially in a continent such as Africa, in the socio-economic development of our lives, and particularly in the realization of SDGs.
Thank you. Bassam, from telco perspective, how do you tackle those SDG? How do you tackle those sustainability development goals of the UN? Yesterday, Salat talked about the net zero on 2040. Do you have some program like this?
We as an not just necessarily Ooredoo Oman, but Ooredoo Group as an entity, under its remit, 10 operations, has multiple goals that it has to become net zero by a certain period of time. And one of the first things that it pushed through is, of course, ESG, with ESG being a driver, not only as a corporate requirement for you. It's already kick-started that, almost a year ago, and then it became an official requirement for us to drive that forward. And it begins with looking internally into yourself and how you can become net zero within, say, the next 2 or 3 years, or how you can become net zero over a certain period of time. And of course, depending on your operations, where they may be, Oman may be easier to become net zero over a certain period of time. Other operations may be a lot more difficult. So there's a time plan that we need to set in place to make sure that we actually deliver on our ESG initiative. And I would always say it's baby steps. You start slow, you do the basics of how you can become an ESG reliant organization. And then it starts with maybe one entity, and then you can cascade it down to your others. Learnings are always extremely important. A lot of our operations are also same type of terrain, same type of telco type market. You're looking at Middle East, North Africa, and then you're looking at the Far East. So you can club the learnings that you have and then spread them out so that you can become a lot faster. I've noticed that as ESG has started, a lot of organizations look at it from a silo perspective, and I don't think that will be beneficial for them. It's imperative that they utilize their opportunities and learnings from even other organizations to make sure that their ESG initiative is done extremely fast.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fadi, from vendor perspective?
Yeah, I would maybe focus on three SDGs. The first one is, of course, the climate, but I already mentioned there in terms of efficiency. For Ericsson as a group, we are going for net zero by 2040, but also we need to have milestones. So by 2030, our target is to have fixed the emissions from our own, manufacturing and all of our own operations. Second, if I look at the digital inclusion SDG, there we are spending a lot of effort to ensure that we can support the new generation of students to be able to be digitally aware. So we have a few programs to achieve that. One is called the Connect to Learn, where we collaborate with our customers in terms of how do we bring digital apparatus, digital curriculum, so that the students actually get an early exposure to that, especially in areas of the world where this is not easily readily available. We also are we're actually the first partner to the UNICEF Giga project in terms
schools.
of, so we've actually now mapped with their support all of the schools and given a kind of status of they're connected or not, and then working with the other parties in terms of applying that connectivity. The third one would be about financial inclusion, and I mean, today, according to the World Bank Findex status, there's 25% of people in the world who are unbanked, right? That's why we've been engaged in that field for many years now. We have what we call the Ericsson wallet platform that enables digital transactions over the mobile phone. And you can see the adoption is incredible. I mean, we are supporting today over 300 million wallets, and there's a transactions of $36 billion a month that go through that, solution. So it clearly shows that there is an incredible pent-up demand for people to be able to, send money, save, borrow, lend, and buy through mobility. So those are the three kind of tracks that we are taking in order to support the SDGs.
Mobile wallet, specifically in Africa, it's a booming market. I think just for Orange, it was more than 1 billion euros of transaction.
Exactly.
Okay. Ken, what's your opinion?
I guess we see it, I see it in different shapes and forms. I think generally from an investor perspective, it's kind of ironic. We do give lip service to these goals, but is it integrated into your strategy? Are you measuring whatever the advancements are going to be? In particular, we get asked a lot about how you're moving to net zero and how you measure that. I think operators generally started by doing things like things they could control, looking at emissions from their vehicles or looking at emissions from our power consumption at core sites or base stations. But are we measuring that? Are we measuring how we're moving those in the right direction? Is a totally different question. And I don't know that all operators are. I think certainly some are, and some have very comprehensive programs, but it goes from none to more integrated programs. And I do think we need, as a sector, we could benefit from measuring it in a much better way. And I think investors also, although when we look at a business case, it's probably one of the last things, honestly, that people look at. It's moving up the ladder, and I think that it's becoming a much more important factor. And in fact, sectors that are particularly not paying attention to these will suffer in the long run if they don't properly measure the programs that they've got to put in place, and I should mention partner with the right partners that are also they're also paying attention to their own footprint.
So do you think it's challenging for operators to meet the net zero?
I think it's only challenging because we're not doing it. But when I was on the operator side, we were seeing our power consumption and the cost of it growing much faster than our revenues often. And so there's nothing that gives the environment, or as one element of the whole program, a focus like when the cost side's growing like that. So I do think that, I don't think we're doing a good enough job today, to be honest.
Samir, any comment to add?
I think, look, from our point of view, the SDGs, we bucket our capabilities maybe in 3 buckets, where each contribute to a certain number of SDGs. One related to our aircraft, the way it functions, it's solar powered.
Solar.
There's nothing, even when you launch it, you saw the video yesterday, just throw it by hand. You're not even using any fuel. So it's there's a lot of clean energy elements here. Then the connectivity part, obviously, we all contribute to connecting people, and connecting people, you're reducing poverty. You're improving economic situations in different communities, and the fact that we're doing it in rural and remote areas, is special because it's bringing up those communities. I just came back from Africa, where we're looking to establish an airport in Kenya. We call it an AALTO port, and those communities, the job creations that we will have in those areas will be certainly massive. And the third bucket is related to what you do when you are able to sense things on Earth, and life below water, and all kinds of agricultural SDGs that, those are, we can increase the crop yield by having eyes in the sky from and enable certain applications. So, I think we touch upon each of these. As we're still a startup, but as we bring the program towards a a more mature stage and you know, a full commercial operation, the plan is to have fully integrated ESG goals for everybody in the company.
Yeah, coverage will also bring the digital inclusion, will give access to digital to all the, And we have seen also on the market some operators investing in refurbishment plans, in digital centers, and again, contributing to the digital inclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. We all agree that telecoms and ICT are what keeps everything functioning. How do you manage to pursue this mission? Maybe I'll start with you, Bassam.
I think it goes back to what I was stating before. You know, I think you summed it up. A lot of the questions reaching up to this point is the investment, what kind of investments you're putting. I think the colleagues also mentioned the smart investments that you're putting. They have to be smart investments. And a lot of these smart investments are in the disruptive technologies that we discussed earlier. Some of the things that we are doing at Ooredoo Oman is, of course, investing in our 5G technology, enhancing it, making sure that it's available to everyone and anyone in the country. Likewise, one of the big things that we see is driving is going to be the hyperscalers in the country. So already we are launching major flagship data centers within the country that will allow all of this massive amount of data to come into the country, as mentioned by our colleagues. What are you going to do with this data? The information that you have under your fingertips is going to be extremely beneficial, not only for us, but for our partners. And then it all goes down to how the customer is going to use this information. So it's this multiple pieces that need to, you know, align the ducks, as they say, of how you're going to continue to invest in these big opportunities, big disruptive technologies. And then it drives into the fintech space that the colleagues were mentioning, the AI piece that we were discussing before, and how we can use that to further drive new opportunities and new revenue streams to make sure that the telco moves over to the techco. I'll keep using that analogy because it's extremely important for us to stop thinking of ourselves as just a telecom provider and moving over to an operator that can actually provide more than just that.
Thank you. John, importance of ICT?
I would summarize it in 2 words: open mind. I think the modern telecoms leader has to really have an open mind, whether towards innovation, whether towards partnerships, whether towards social investments. We've talked about SDGs a little earlier, and we see this in terms of, you know, organizations or individuals or companies that have an open mind to new ideas, being able to gel a lot more with their environment, organizations that encourage youthful ideas, you know, gender sort of mainstreaming and all that. And so the modern telecoms leader must have, especially at the level of policy development, an open mind. What I see increasingly in Africa in terms of openness, especially from a policy perspective, is not to think of policy development as the realm or a monopoly of governments. And increasingly, we are seeing where policy industry is brought increasingly in policy development, so much so that the policy frameworks, the regulatory frameworks that come out of that process is more inclusive, is more acceptable. So the modern telecoms leader must really, really, really have an open mind to innovation, an open mind to social investment, an open mind to, you know, a participatory approach, collaborating a lot more across industry and within industry, so much so that you no longer probably consider yourself as a telecom-centric company, but an organization that is able to integrate various players, whether verticals or partners in the sort of environment in which you play. So having an open mind is how I would summarize it in terms of what is required of a modern telecoms leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
Yeah, I think that sort of summarizes it well. I do think we need to think about where the ball is going, and you know, our investments and new technology take years to get to proper commercial scale often. So, you know, where should we be investing? I mean, clearly data centers, as we keep talking about, are an important one, but data centers alone don't do it. You need the fiber or to connect them, or you need other forms of connectivity, whether it's fixed wireless or satellite, whatever. You need to think about where the biggest return you're obviously going to get in the short term. And I think you do have to think about your particular market and where it needs additional infrastructure. So, I think that we sometimes underinvest in areas because the long-term returns are not apparent. But unless we build these new platforms for growth, whether it's on edge data centers, whether it's fiber or whatever other infrastructure, then you're not going to be there in the game in the long run. So that's where I would definitely plant the seeds, even if your particular market you don't see the technology ready for prime time right away. It's still important to plant those seeds.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Fadi?
Maybe in addition to the colleagues on the panel who've spoken about the way ahead and all of the multitude of investment and innovation.
How to anticipate.
I would like to add maybe one part to it, and that is managing complexity. Because if you look at what happened during the pandemic, the entire world was dependent on technology to basically just continue living, right? Working, producing, studying, and so forth.
This is how we saw how important it was to have a good connectivity and to have access to teams, to be able to see each other, etc.
Exactly. So the reliability of that connectivity, be it mobile or fixed, is key. And we can see today, obviously, the reaction if there's any incident in the network. I mean, it has major repercussions on customers and the brand and commitments to regulatory and everything. So this is becoming incredibly important to keep that reliability, while the technology is becoming much more complicated as such. So I think managing that complexity to ensure the reliability is an element I would like to add to that mix.
Yeah, for sure. And Samir, I think it's continuous development.
Well, look, let me maybe take it from a different angle and continue on what Fadi is saying. We're all blessed to be here. Look at the Wi-Fi. It works great here, right? Let's talk about those people that are very much less privileged in remote and rural areas. Many years ago, I installed 2 satellite terminals in a very remote area in southern Lebanon, and two schools that had no access whatsoever to any connectivity. And over the next 6 months, I was observing how they were using those terminals and what they were doing with them. And we developed a video at the time, and to a conference just like this one, I brought those kids from the school to talk about their experience. And it was a massive transformation. Those kids, some of them went to college in the US. They had no chance of even going to the city, for education. What it did for them, the curriculum changed. The teachers were able to download things from the internet that they've never had access to before. There's so much that is needed outside of those urban areas that we live in. That the investment is not making its way properly into these things, and hopefully we can do a better job to get it there.
For sure. Okay, thank you. So, what are the best practices for telecom leaders to succeed in their journeys and keep up in this fast-paced industry, especially with the emergence of new trends such as AI most recently? We talked about AI, so John, what do you think about the new trends with the AI, what it will bring to the market, etc.?
Thank you very much. I've already mentioned having an open mind to these issues, but I think 5G is poised to get a lot more ubiquitous in our networks, and with that comes the ability of us to be a lot more predictive and definitive in terms of traffic trends, in terms of consumer demands and trends. And so the role of AI is becoming important for networks. And I think the sort of openness that I talked about in terms of modern telecoms leader, integrating artificial intelligence, in networks in terms of network optimization, the ability of the network to solve conflicts or issues by using AI technologies and predictive trends in terms of consumer demands or what the industry is likely to be is going to be a lot more important. And so the modern telecoms leader needs to integrate this in network planning and in terms of how they perceive industry in terms of trends and consumer demands. I think we are going to see a lot more commercialization of 5G, and with that comes, of course, higher speeds, better speeds, and so AI is poised to be important in any network planning, and especially in terms of prediction of consumer trends and hence network planning. So I think the modern telecoms leader must of necessity integrate this. I think the sort of challenge that we still see in Africa, if you can allow me, is from a policy perspective, the rather nascent policy framework for these technologies to take root. And I think we must increasingly, as a continent, play in that space in terms of benchmarking, comparing with the best in the industry in terms of how we can ensure that networks in Africa also integrate this in their planning, in their operations, so that we catch up and ensure that the benefits of this technology is available to the African population.
Okay. Bassam, AI brought a lot of let's say, new stuff in the telco industry for telco operators, talking about predictive maintenance, talking about next best action, next best offer, etc. How do you tackle this?
You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to mention that. Let me just start off with AI. I mean, AI, a lot of people are seeing it, well, at least speaking to different industry leaders and so forth. Some people see it as a hype. Some people see it as a tool that they can use and harness to their abilities. And some people see it as a phase that will pass and something bigger will come along. We at Ooredoo have been using AI for quite some time now. And you clearly mentioned now, how do you use it to predict issues in your network so that it becomes responsive? So you have the predictive AI or reactive AI, and then it moves on to generative. How is it going to actually think of itself and respond immediately before you even think that there's a problem in the network? And likewise, this actually happens for the network. How is this going to be utilized for us as an organization, as you clearly mentioned now, pushing it towards the customer, next best offer, next best service that they could potentially take, how we can upsell to the customer. But it's about harnessing AI for your right advantage. Sometimes entities, and I've seen this as well in other organizations, they utilize AI not necessarily to their best advantage. It is going to be a major disruptive platform for the industry, and if you don't utilize it and actually take advantage of it, it will overcome your organization. So we need to look at it from different aspects. One of the key aspects we're looking at is, how is it going to help us in our network? Network is extremely important, because if it is able to resolve customer problems quickly, your customer experience will improve, and at the end of the day, the customer will realize and see that there is, the operator is now responding to me very quickly, is providing me a very good service very quickly, and this is with you doing nothing. You're sitting at home or in the office, and the AI is doing this for you. Harnessing it, teaching it, molding AI is going to be one of the biggest challenges. I think we're still not there yet, understanding how we can mold it to become us. Because AI is very easy. You take it, you use it. I mean, a lot of us have used ChatGPT. We put in our requests, and it starts to print out a lot of things. But then you need to give it a persona. You need to give AI a persona. I am a 20-year experienced telecom CEO. How would you do this? That hasn't come yet. I think that's where we need to now take it. We need to give AI a persona that we can utilize to help us in our business. And this is what's going to take us to the next step, especially for Ooredoo Oman. This is how we see we're going to be utilizing AI.
And what about CapEx optimization? You use it also?
we're not starting to use that now, but that is one of the opportunities that it will definitely drive, improvement on your capex. It will improve your opex, of course. There's the opex efficiency. It will have a lot of, things that were redundant that you were utilizing individuals for. You can actually now have them processed through AI and actually become more effective when it's actually done through AI. And these humans can be utilized for something a bit more important that a human would be used for. But it is already being utilized, and I've seen it being utilized in small organizations, SMEs, a lot faster than the big corporates. And I believe that they're going to ramp up a lot faster than the corporates. And if we don't take that opportunity now, it's going to be an issue for the big telcos.
So optimizing the investment while bringing more tools for the end customers.
That's the major intention now, but what are the big advantages that you could see in the future? I think there's a lot of things that a lot of people have not seen its benefit. We're literally a pebble in the pond at the moment. We haven't seen the potential of what AI is going to be. I think it's going to be very big.
Sure. Fadi, a word about new technologies and how AI is contributing?
Sure. I think if you look at the telecom networks, actually they are an incredibly natural fit for AI and machine learning because you get billions of data inputs, right, from the network. And today, unless you have an automated way to handle that and to do something with it, is not being utilized in the right way. So we bring that technology into bear in terms of the vision we have of zero-touch network. Is something, it's a journey, right? We're not there today, but the vision is about to ensure that the network per se learns about what's happening there, the characteristics, the requirements, and if there's any issues that need to be handled and can actually address those, and predict those up front. We see implementations of that already today, and definitely it's going the right way. We're implementing a lot of what we call cognitive software, which is precisely doing so. And you can test that in environments where you have huge surge of traffic. Typically, it would be during events and in stadiums. And by introducing this type of software, you see how you can optimize the performance of the network, being the download or the uplinks, for a huge amount of traffic, something that we frankly could not do just on pure manual work a few years back. So we see that as an essential way of the development of ensuring that these networks become higher and higher performance. And also software, which is incredibly important for energy consumption. So we bring AI in the radio as well to manage what we call deep sleep, for instance, studies on when you need to have parts of the active equipment up or down, and again, predicting what's going to happen in the traffic so you don't lose anybody there. So we're just starting, but it's going to be incredibly powerful moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Samir?
Look, from a technology point of view, I think there's three technologies that are so key for us and the advancement of those technologies. One is the solar panel technology, lightweight solar panels. The second one is the battery technology because, and thanks to the auto industry, this is developing quite well. But packing more density into cells that are smaller and lighter is important. And the third one, obviously, is AI. And for us, AI is going to be an incredible tool to fly aircraft. We're going to have hundreds of those, gliders around the world flying and doing missions and managing payloads and maneuvering around the weather and providing a service. So this will not be done by a human, doing work on a computer. This will all be done by AI, with human intervention being just for whenever there's an exception and dealing with that. So those are, I think, the three key technologies that we're looking forward to developing.
Okay, thank you. Ken, a word about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about all the use cases. I think the biggest opportunity is in the network side, as Fadi said. And I think today we see the situation where these large language models are driven by the hyperscalers and their facilities. I think just going back to John's point, I think just one challenge on investment will be how do we move that processing power closer towards the customer. Certainly if they think about the hyperscale data centers in Africa in particular, you've got interesting investments going on in all the big major countries, Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria, of course, South Africa, Kenya, but the smaller countries are don't have those necessarily. There's investments that are starting and investments that are perhaps subscale. But I think, to your question about where's the investment going to go, I think it's or where does it needed potentially is in those places. So I think we're going to see AI transform all of our businesses. I mean, definitely, it's going to take over activities for elements of our operations from commercial to technical. But we also don't want to leave a subset of the market behind. And so investment for operators, it represents an opportunity either for operators or for data center companies that are looking to invest into new markets.
Okay, thank you. We've reached the end of this panel and would like to have your final thoughts. So where do you see the telco industry going in the coming 5 years? I'll start by Yousef and hand over to all of you.
I think it's going to a crazy world. I think it's just moving at a pace that a lot of people are struggling to keep up with. So, my advice is hire a lot of young people that know what they're doing.
Okay, Bassam.
Definitely agree. It's technology is ever changing every day. I mean, if you don't keep up with it, if you don't adapt to it, if you don't develop the people that you have in the organization towards it, then you're just going to fall behind. Competition will take over. It's extremely important that you look at all of the latest technologies that are coming through. I mean, we threw them out now. We're discussing them. AI. What can you utilize for these services that you have within your organization? And if you don't catch up with the times, then it's only going to stretch you back and keep you back.
Okay, thank you. Fadi?
I would say, besides technology, what's very interesting is in 5 years from now, what are the use cases that people are using, right? So definitely I'm looking forward for the enterprise and companies abroad to adopt the 5G technology and to ensure that it helps them in cost efficiencies and productivity. And also what we discussed today about all types of other technologies, how can it help consumers, students, in order for us to support, to reach the efforts that SDG is going. So I think we have a positive future ahead of us. There's a lot of talk, of course, about the dangers of technologies such as AI and others. Fully understandable, but I think we should also spend even more time on the positives that can support to the planet and the society.
Thank you. Ken?
Yeah, I still think we have a lot of work to do for our core businesses. I think our core businesses of connectivity are under, they are under pressure. Our margins are squeezed, depending, in all markets, frankly. And our capacity as operators to invest is becoming more and more difficult. So we're going to continue to see a need to tighten up our operations. We're going to continue to see some delayering of businesses as we carve out our assets, whether it's fiber or towers or data centers. And you're going to see businesses focus on various sectors, and you're going to see capital looking for opportunities in those in very distinct sectors. I think for the integrated operator, it's probably the most challenging question, how you transform yourself. And we've heard from Ian how they're trying to transform themselves. I think every operator needs to sort of be thinking about whether the business today is going to be the same one in 5 years. And personally, I don't think it is. I think it's going to be more around services, using AI to better reach the customer. And I think you're going to see infrastructure investors put their money into very distinct connectivity, fiber, or data center type of investments.
Yeah. So again, moving from telco to techco, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much. Across the creek at the city center, the World Radio Conference is going on. This is the third week, and we are increasingly seeing a sort of a scramble, if I can use that word, for radio resources that is the lifeblood of this industry, especially in terms of various technologies, IMT, satellite broadcasting, and all that. And I think we need to understand that not one technology, especially for a continent such as Africa, where basic connectivity is still a challenge, not one technology can unlock the connectivity challenges in the continent. And for early adopters, I think we also need to come to terms with IoT, IoT, artificial intelligence, and 5G. 5G is placing, and now increasingly 6G, is placing increased demand for radio resources, and how we will get those additional resources, retooling our innovation and technologies in order to be able to effectively and efficiently use the resources, radio resources that are already available, whether for IMT, whether for satellite, whether for broadcasting. It's a challenge that the world needs to come to terms with across town in terms of the interplay of these various technologies insofar as their demand for radio resources is concerned. I think that is a big challenge across the creek, and I just need to let this meeting know that that debate is raging. Not one technology, in my view, will unlock the connectivity challenges that we have in a continent such as Africa. In my view, the closing, the parting shot again is have an open mind. Have an open mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your contribution and time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.